Hello everybody, this is Catholic Dad, episode number 152. I want to talk today about the BYU valedictorian commencement speech. This is kind of hot in the news right now. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if you've seen it, but I think it's probably going to have more news in the near future. And so what happened is, so I don't know if you know this, but BYU is a religious institution affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, essentially the LDS religion. People around the country know them as Mormons. So it's a religious institution. And their commencement speaker, who was their valedictorian, came out as homosexual in his valedictorian speech. Now, I want to be very careful with this. I am not judging anybody. I'm just analyzing the facts. And I know that some people are going to come out and analyze them in the future, and I'm not trying to offend anybody. But all that being said is, let's see. So this guy is, he's LDS. Essentially, he's a Mormon. And he comes out and he states in his commencement speech, I actually watched it, he said, I'm coming out as a gay child of God, essentially. And he got a big cheers, whoops, claps, everything else. And then he went on, well, I'll explain that later. But all that being said is, so if he adheres to the Mormon religion, or, the LDS religion, he adheres to the dogmatic positions of the church. And when you have dogmatic positions within your church, which I don't know if you know, but LDS is typically, it states that homosexuality is a sin, okay? And so he is essentially saying that he doesn't adhere to the dogmatic positions of the church. Now, if you don't adhere to the dogmatic positions of the church, what you're encouraged to do is be quiet and pray over it. That's what you're supposed to do. And if you come out and publicly proclaim your opposition to the dogmatic positions of the church, that actually makes you a heretic. That actually is the definition of a heretic and heresy. And so I don't know if the LDS religion has that definition, but that certainly is the Roman Catholic definition. So the valedictorian speaker of BYU, a religious institution, comes out and states in his valedictorian speech a position of heresy. Now, wow, that's amazing. It's, a lot of people would say it's courageous, and in some capacity it certainly is courageous. But let's talk about gratitude to begin with. He grew up in an LDS household, presumably. He grew up in his LDS faith. These LDS universities are heavily funded by, LDS parishioners, right? They tithe to their church. Their church takes the tithe that sets up these university systems, and so his education was heavily subsidized by people who are adherent to the faith. And he developed that's a great gift that he got from his fellow parishioners and people of the faith. And so, therefore, coming out and proclaiming heresy at one of the largest events in the LDS church throughout the year, I would state is probably one of little gratitude. Now, it may be courage, and maybe he thinks he needs to change the dogmatic positions of the faith, but for thousands and thousands of years, religious institutions have been taking that dogmatic position. And one guy in the middle of a commencement speech in the year 2019 probably won't change the dogmatic positions of the church. And therefore, what did he try to accomplish? And I will state what he tried to accomplish. Because then he said that this was a great victory of his. He never thought he would be able to have such a victory, come out as homosexual to his friends and peers at his university. But he wanted people to take his example and internalize it in their life, and he said, and perhaps you can see what victories you can come up with in your life and use him as an example, perhaps, and he didn't say exactly, but a beacon of courage, use his example as an example of the things that you struggle with and the victories you can attain. That's a paraphrase, maybe I'm off by a little bit, but essentially that's what he said. So what he said was, his victory is espousing a position of heresy for all the world to hear. And all of you, please take that as an example and perhaps see what victories you can espouse, victories in your life. So when a heretic says that, essentially they're encouraging you to look deep in your soul and perhaps find other positions that the church is against. I don't know what he was talking about, but I would suspect things like pedophilia might fall into that, or other abnormal behaviors. Now, so that term is called scandal, because there's a lot of people in the world that suffer with certain inclinations towards other people that are not necessarily good, and religious organization take dogmatic positions against these. So what he was saying is, if you too are living in a quiet way, and you want to have a great victory like I did, use me as an example, and you too can come out and proclaim your victory. And that is scandal. That's leading people to scandal if you adhere to the LDS faith. And therefore, I mean, it may seem very courageous in the secular utopian world that we're attempting to live in, where everything, absolutely everything, is normalized, and where there is nothing that you can say is abnormal. But perhaps he was saying not just my heresy, but more heresies, and encouraging people to scandalize other people around themselves. Now, I don't know the heart of this kid, I really don't. But it seemed like an inappropriate forum, if you ask me, where he was the great recipient of all these LDS dollars to further his education, and he comes out and essentially takes one of their biggest dogmatic positions and says an act of heresy against the very people that funded his religion. And I would think he should probably think about that a lot. The other thing is, when you take other people's souls and you put them, you paralyze them by encouraging positions of scandal, then you really got to be careful with what you're doing, because if you believe in salvation or hell, if you believe in eternity, then you really have to be careful what you do with the tenuous lives of other people. And I would give a very strong warning to him in the future about espousing heresy in his own religion and encouraging other people to find their victories using him as an example, because that could be transgenderism, that could be turning your kids transgender, that could be, you name it. There's a million things that people do out there that are fornication and self-abuse and so on and so forth. And so I would actually encourage the leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints to actually take a position on this and make it a strong position, because heresy is unacceptable. It is. And to make it a position of the kid showed no gratitude, and he's trying to lead other people into a scandalous behavior which imperils their souls. And so this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like or subscribe if you like the contents of these videos, and live a sacramental life and get to Mass and pray the daily rosary. And God bless you all. Have a nice day. And oh, by the way, I hold no ill will towards anybody with regards to sexual issues and so on and so forth. I know if I have certain inclinations, everybody has inclinations towards other things in their lives, and I wouldn't go out and try to convince people to do things that I think are probably not right to do. So I'm not sitting here saying I'm holier than thou, but I am taking a strong stance against publicly acclaimed heresy. So God bless you all. Take care. Bye.